Senate will please come to order. The Senate will please come to order. All those not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chamber. And with those on the floor and our guest in the gallery, please rise as we are led in prayer this morning by Reverend Brett Layton. He's the superintendent of West Virginia's South District Church of the Nazarene in Charleston, West Virginia. And then please remain standing as we are led in the pledge this morning by the senator from Harrison County, Reverend Layton.
We are so thankful, Father, for the incredible privilege it is to live in this great state of ours. We're also filled with gratitude for the honor of leading and serving others. Would you remind us today that leadership always means that we put others first, and that to whom much is given, much is required. May we never again wait for the death of a celebrity to remind us of the potential brevity of life and the uncertainty that a given day may bring. Help us to remember today that each day is a gift from you and also a special opportunity to share it with family and friends and with all those we serve. Help us to live a life of love and of gratitude and to be an extension of your grace and to be the reason someone else is having a good day. Lord, would you please bless and strengthen and help all of our lawmakers today and all of their incredible and dedicated staff. Thank you for the wonderful and necessary work they do. And Lord, may today be a great day here in our most beautiful capital city and throughout our most amazing mountain state. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Layton. The senator from Harrison County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will you please stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to our nation? I pledge allegiance to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Reading of the journal.
West Virginia Legislature, Senate Journal, February 5th, 2020. The Senate met at 11:11 a.m.
The senator from Brooke County requests unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Recognize the junior senator from 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the provisions of Senate Rule 54 be suspended today to allow our veteran guests to have floor privileges for today.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Introduction of guests. On behalf of the Senate, it is my pleasure to welcome our honorary pages for the day. Please stand and be recognized when your name is called. As guest of the senior senator from the 5th, we have Sunjet Nigenhall and Sunjet Nigenhall. As guest of the senior senator from the 8th, we have Abigail Landers. As guest of the senator from Upshur, Caden Adrick, and Henry Oscar Phillips. As guest of the senior senator from the 17th, Vivian Lamb. As guest of the senator from Greenbrier, Rebecca Newsom and Grace Bennett. And as guest of the senator from Tucker, Kensington McGill and Lula McGill. They're all standing in the front. If the Senate would give them a warm welcome. Thank you. You may be seated. Further introductions. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Senate, it is my pleasure and yours to introduce our Doctor of the Day. The West Virginia Academy Family Physicians Doctor of the Day in the rear of the chamber is Dr. Mitch Jakes. If you wouldn't mind standing, let the Senate give you a warm welcome.
The senior senator from the 5th.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the pages we have today that you introduced, Sunjit, his mother is here, but I want to say a little something about Sunjit. He was here the other day with his father with the Cabell County Medical Association, and he actually presented to Delegate Rohrbaugh and a group over in the House, and I'm very proud. You know, he is a Huntington High School student, but his mother today is with us, Sapna Negenhall, and if we could give her a welcome.
The senior senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of my fellow senator from Mercer, we have with us seated in the North Gallery Princeton Rescue Squad member EMT Katie Johnston. Katie, please stand. And EMT James Hill, who is also a Princeton City Council member. They are here today for EMS Day. Senate, please join me and make them welcome.
The senator from Brooke County.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the North Gallery, we have a lot of cadets, the West Virginia Civil Air Patrol. And this is an organization that I've come to be affiliated with and much more familiar with since I've been a member of the legislature. And it's really been a great pleasure. The Civil Air Patrol, one of their biggest pieces that they do is the cadets that they have across the state, high school students that learn leadership through their program. And we have a lot of them here today. And I think it's important that we recognize them because in a time when a lot of kids we think aren't really getting out there and making themselves better, whether that's the case or not, these kids are. And the West Virginia Civil Air Patrol does a lot for this state, whether if it comes to natural disasters like the flooding that we saw back in 2016, to support for the Jamboree, the Boy Scout Jamboree that we have each year. The Civil Air Patrol really does a lot for our state. And so these guys are all up in the North Gallery, so if they could stand in the Senate, make them feel welcome.
The junior senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your behalf and mine as well, we have some veterans here from Jackson County, members of the VFW. And I don't think I have all their names, but the ones I do have, I want to make sure I recognize. And if you would all stand, I'm not sure which gallery they ended up in here, but I have Randall Baer, Jeffrey Elkins, and Bill Williams, and Bill Stewart. And then also from the Mason County, the auxiliary for the VFW is Jamie Crum, Joe Krauser, Crystal Warner, and Laurie Cunningham. It's the former ladies auxiliary there. So if the Senate would please make them welcome. Are they standing here anywhere? Did I get some? Yeah, there they are. Hello. If the Senate would please make them welcome.
The senator from Raleigh County.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're pleased to have in your North Gallery the Dr. Mark Harris and his son Stephen. If you'll stand, please, and the Senate make them feel welcome.
Senator from Upshur County.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the senator from Nicholas County and me, I'd like to introduce the parents of our page, Geneva Jenkins and Greg Phillips. They're seated in the presidential gallery. Would they please stand and the Senate make them welcome?
The senator from Tucker County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've got a couple introductions. First, on behalf of the senator from Preston and myself, we have the mother of our pages today in the President's Gallery. If Ebony McGill would stand and the members make her welcome. Thank you, Mr. President. And also, on behalf of all the senators in the chamber, we have with us today the wife of our doorkeeper, David Lavender, and his wife, Patty, is in the gallery, the North Gallery. If she would stand and the members make her welcome.
Further introductions, the senior senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your behalf and my junior senator from the 8th's behalf, we have one of our pages parents here today. And Amy Landers, if you would stand and the Senate make you welcome.
The senator from Greenbrier County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to introduce from Mountain View Christian School, who's brought our pages here today, Amy Adkins, if she would please stand so the Senate could make her feel welcome.
The senior senator from the 5th.
Thank you, Mr. President. The senator from Cabell and I also have a constituent here that's a senior at Marshall, Charles Walker. He is working for Senator Manchin in his office as an intern right now while he's still going to school. He's a political science major. I've worked with his mother on a number of different issues related to the Tri-State Transit Authority, and I would like to welcome him here, and he's seated in the rear.
Thank you. Further introductions. Further introductions. The senior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the junior senator from the 17th, we have the grandparents of our page, Vivian Lamb, here today, Noah Perry and Diane Martin. If they can stand and the Senate make them feel well.
Further introductions. Junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to proceed to the 7th order of business.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Unfinished business.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 20, naming the U.S. Senator Joseph Rozier Memorial Highway.
Resolution will be referred to Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 21, naming the U.S. Army Staff Sergeant James Jr. Spurrier Memorial Bridge.
Resolution will be referred to Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 22, naming the George M. Hall Memorial Bridge.
Resolution will be referred to Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure.
Senate Resolution 32, designating February 6, 2020 as Veterans Visibility Day.
The senator from Brooke County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be placed upon its adoption.
The senator from Brooke County requests unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be placed upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Clerk will please read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 32, designating February 6, 2020 as Veterans Visibility Day at the Legislature.
The question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? The senator from Brooke County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today is what I think one of the most important days we have in the legislature. Behind us, we have a lot of veterans from the state. And not just behind us, but sitting in the chamber as well. And this is a day, Mr. President, when we can recognize the sacrifices of our state's veterans. West Virginians have always answered the call, Mr. President. We are the state of Chuck Yeager, Jessica Lynch, Woody Williams, Frank Buckles, Timothy Bulliard, and the men and women that stand behind us. Our state's proud military heritage goes back to the Civil War, Mr. President. People like my great-great-great-grandfather, Harrison Wallace, who was from Ritchie County, who served in the Union Army. All the way up to our current conflicts with people like Bailey McKinney, who is here this week as an intern from the Center from Boone and serves in the West Virginia Air National Guard. We have asked, as a nation, many of these men and women to serve in conflicts that they didn't ask for, but yet a conflict that we asked them to serve in, and a conflict that they did serve in proudly. And many of these men and women came home with scars that you can't see and that they have carried with them for their service on behalf of the nation. Mr. President, one of the biggest things that I think that we can all do and bring forward when we talk about veterans is that we have 22 veterans a day that tragically take their own life. And while veterans and active duty members take up about 1% of our nation's population, it makes up about 19% of all suicides. And think about that for a second. And these are men and women who carry scars and injuries with them for what they have done on all of our behalf and what they continue to do on all of our behalf. When I came home from Afghanistan, Mr. President, one of the things that I struggled with was people thanking me for my service, because I didn't think that it was something that I should have been thanked for, because it was something that I did willingly. It's something that I volunteered to do. It's something that many people volunteered to do. But I think that is someone's way of really finding a way to thank someone for what they did, because perhaps they wish that they had played a bigger role, or disappointed that they couldn't. And so I struggled with that for a little bit, but then I decided that really the best way is to say you're welcome, because it does mean something very much to us. But it means something very much to everyone else that we served, that you all took up the mantle, that you wore the flag into battle. And so I think that by saying you're welcome really is a sign of respect to people who care about what we did. And many people are reluctant to talk about their experiences. They're reluctant to talk about what they did. But you'll find that if you just ask, if you engage a little bit, you might not get into specifics, but then we'll talk about what they did, the job they had in the military, what they did in their service. Find out what's next for them. Because while being a veteran is an important part of who we all are, it's not just what we've done, what we will do. We all came home, or all got out of the service with a sense of purpose to make the community that we live in better. So I think that's the question to ask. What's next for you? What do you want to do next? And I think, Mr. President, you'll find that many want to continue that service despite the fact that they're not wearing a uniform. So I want to thank you all for being here today and for what you've done for the state of West Virginia and for our nation. I urge passage.
Thank you. Further remarks? The senator from Boone County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, rise in support of this resolution. In addition to all the eloquent things that our senator has said regarding their service, what I see is their service to the communities after their home. And the folks that I see here through military funerals, through everything from as basic as food baskets for the hungry and the poor, to being mentors for our students, to make them grow up and want to do what's right. So these citizens, these veterans have absolutely carried on a mantle to improve our little communities throughout all of West Virginia. One of the things that I've found lately as a physician is that there is a very difficult process of gaining veterans benefits. So I think we're leaving millions of dollars from the federal government that should be right here in these veterans and their families and their survivors' hands, largely because we are not investing enough in these veteran service officers. I listened to our Finance Committee report, and there's just not enough money to hire as many to keep the turnover, to pay them enough to keep them from turning over. And once you get a seasoned veteran service officer, they really know how the system works, and they can bring back this federal dollars that is deserved to be here. And also to, and these dollars are spent in all our little communities throughout the state of West Virginia. So I think we need to, as a legislature, to invest in whatever it takes to make sure that there's a robust VSO system in West Virginia so that we can take full advantage, and it would improve all aspects of our lives. So again, I urge passage of the resolution.
There's a further discussion. The senator from Greenbrier County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to rise and share my thanks this morning. I'd like to just share very briefly a word of Scripture. Galatians chapter 6 says, "Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ." I rise to say thank you because I feel it is incumbent upon myself and upon this body to bear your burdens because you have borne our burdens. And I'm a pastor who serves an aging congregation, and some of my mature members are veterans, mostly men, and they have burdens that can't necessarily be met in traditional ways. And so some of those folks have specifically reached out and asked me, they've said, you know what would help? It would help if we had a veterans nursing facility in our part of the state, in southern West Virginia. And so I know this body has worked on that for a while, and I think it's incumbent upon us to continue to work to find a solution to that problem and find that funding so that we can bear one another's burdens, just as we do so here today with tremendous humility and gratitude in our hearts. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Recognize the senator from Tucker County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that the remarks from senators from Boone, Brooke, and Greenbrier be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Without objection, so ordered. Further discussion? The question for the Senate is adoption of resolution. The yeas and nays have been demanded. Is the demand sustained? The demand is sustained. All those in favor of the resolution will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting, having voted in the affirmative, I declare the resolution adopted. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting this very important resolution.
Junior senator from the 17th moves that the Senate stand in recess for the purpose of presenting this resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate in recess to present this important resolution. Senate will please come to order. The Senate will please come to order. Are there additional items under unfinished business?
Yes, sir. Senate Resolution 33, reaffirming sister state relationship between West Virginia and Taiwan.
Junior Senator from the 17th.
Here, Mr. President, our request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be placed upon its adoption.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Clerk will please read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 33, reaffirming the sister state relationship between the state of West Virginia and Taiwan.
Question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? The senior senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor and privilege today to stand and welcome my good friends from the Republic of China, is what we call Taiwan. I guess it was, 2 years ago that I took the trip to Taiwan, and it had been 10 years in the making. And did I ever get to learn many, many things? And in the relationship that we have between our country and Taiwan, our state and Taiwan. In fact, there's something I keep in my office, and many of us are probably familiar with yoke industries. One of the things I asked for when we went on that tour is, because I'm all about manufacturing and things like that. And it was the first time that any of their tours that they took anybody to a manufacturing facility. And we went to yoke, which I was familiar with. And they make clevises, they made all kinds of things in there. And I wanted you guys to see, I'm holding this right in my hand here today. It's important and it's essential. For that matter, up in my office upstairs. We use this multiple times a day, and it still looks like the day that it was given to me. But it goes further than that. We have New Century in Mason County that is a relationship that has been built between Taiwan and West Virginia. And it's my hope that we can see greater future participation between their country and our state, as well as our country. I don't want to exclude the other 49 states because it's advantageous to us all. To maintain the very, very best relationship that we possibly can. I don't know where I said this, but it was one of my top 10 experiences in my life to go experience a new culture, a culture that is very similar to ours, but yet very different. What a learning experience for somebody like me that had never been outside the borders of our country. And I don't know whether anybody else in this chamber has actually done the Taiwan trip. But if you haven't, and they offer you the opportunity, I couldn't encourage you more to go and do it. It was a 10-day trip. It's a flight to the other side of the world. And it was one of the very, very best experiences of my life. And the hospitality is the same type of hospitality that we give in West Virginia, they gave to us. And West Virginia is noted for having some of the best hospitality in the world. So with that said, Mr. President, I welcome them, and I know they're going to make some remarks, and I'm looking forward to hearing that. And it would make me even feel greater if you said, hey, we're getting ready and we're going to put more investment into West Virginia, because That's what we're about. We're trying to get that, and we want you guys here. A great country, a great group of people, Mr. President, and I couldn't have been more honored with this privilege to be able to stand up and speak on their behalf. Thank you.
Further remarks, the senator from Marion County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also had the opportunity to travel to Taiwan, and like the chairman of finance said, probably one of the highlights of my life, going over there and recognizing the country. We've had a sister state relationship with the Republic of China, Taiwan, since I think August of 1980. And we've gone back and forth. We've had bilateral trade. We've had education exchange programs. We've traveled to Taiwan. And the people there are beautiful people. The country is a beautiful country. They've got beautiful mountains just like West Virginia and lakes. And the people there are so gracious and so kind. If anyone has the opportunity to go to Taiwan, I would certainly recommend it. But one of the things that stood out in my mind is Taiwan is a democracy. They're right next to mainland China, as you well know, creates a little bit of a situation there. But these people, the mainland China, when I was over there, the people from that country would come to Taiwan to visit, and they really enjoyed it. But one of the things that we do, just in the 2017-2018 school year, over 22,000 students from Taiwan come to American study, and they learn our culture, and they go back and be ambassadors in Taiwan. So, Mr. President, it was a great experience. Anyone has the opportunity to do so, and I stand certainly in support of this resolution.
Thank you. Further discussion? Further discussion. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to also say that I also, too, was invited and got to experience that trip. One of the things they did that was so impressive is they let us tour and meet with the ministries of education and their think tanks in terms of their technological development. They had about 22, 23 tech parks around the state. And just get to see how another group of individuals does things. And what was so impressive is just the hands-on deck mentality. Everybody across the country just seemed to be on the same page. I think they have over 90% of their population is college or vocationally trained, and just the openness, the ideals, the acceptance of others, and I think that's a big part of their success. I can't reiterate as much as it's already been said about the incredible hospitality, and I've done a fair travel across the world, but never have I had just such excellent hospitality as offered by the administration, the guys that brought us over from Taiwan, and so for that I support the amendment.
Thank you. Further discussion? Is there further discussion? Question before the Senate is adoption of resolution. The yeas and nays have been demanded. Is the demand sustained? The demand is sustained. All those in favor of the resolution will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the resolution adopted. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting the resolution.
Junior senator from the 17th moves that the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting this resolution. Before I put the vote, I would say that upon recess, we will hear an address from our guest from the podium while we were in recess. So upon taking the picture, please return to your seats and give our guests the honor of listening to them. So all those in favor of the recess will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the Senate in brief recess to present this resolution.
Dear Mr. President, and the distinguished members of the House of the Senator, and ladies and gentlemen, and our young people here, very good morning to all of you. It is a really great honor when I'm being ushered in and then being invited to say a few words on behalf of the 23 million the people, the government, on the other side of the world, as Craig mentioned. However, we haven't been very close in terms of the legislature's exchange programs, in terms of our bilateral trade outcome. I would very much like to report right now, currently, Taiwan is the 10th largest trading partner with the United States. So the total volume is 94 billion US dollars. Part of them, as the Senator mentioned about, that's our education investment. We feel very worthy. That's 9 billion US dollars. 23,000 Taiwanese students study here, and then once they graduate, back to our home country and contribute a lot. So even our Madam President, Dr. Tsai Ing-wen, she graduated from the United States. Our former President, Dr. Ma Ying-jeou, also graduated from the United States. So we think it's a great investment. So the trade with the West Virginia, and last year it marked 101 million US dollars. We're very proud of to be the seventh largest trading partner in Asia with the West Virginians. So once again, we appreciate so much the long-standing friendship, the support to Taiwan, and we believe we can work together and to do more and more, especially the trade. Like the resolution pointed out, the U.S. and Taiwan, since we have been so much mutually beneficial, so we initiate 2020 this year. Let's sign the agreement of bilateral trade agreement. We think it is very necessary. And also, I think a lot of the senior member here as a senator, if you recall, back to the 1997, back then, the West Virginia had a trade office in Taiwan, later closed in year 2003. However, we think, there are another states from the United States still have the trade office in Taiwan. So we really like is to have both two houses to consider to reopen your trade office there. Because how to create the 101 million trade volume in the past, I think we can double it. We can double it. So have an office in Taiwan. I think the Taiwanese business people can consult directly in Taiwan and then come over here. Let me just quickly let you know, last year, 2 years ago, Taiwan's business people, we organized the largest delegation come to the U.S. to attend the Select USA. That means buy American goods, invest locally here, and we are the largest investors. And I believe, as the senator just mentioned, 2 years ago, we started to have Far East New Century factories. They are recycling the plastic and then they manufacturers. So my colleague James visited them yesterday. They are doing very well. And I like to say is that they're going to expand the scale of their manufacturing and start from recycling all those plastic bottles. So I think any household of yours, when this bottle bill passed, or even nowadays, we haven't been doing good recycling plastic. Taiwan, we can reuse it and then manufacture it, to sell. And like Senator Craig Blair mentioned, customers' satisfaction is on top of our concerns. Right now, whoever have an iPhone, definitely some very core parts of your cell phone manufactured by our Taiwanese Foxconn and our semiconductor manufacturers. So we are very close to each other. And of course, my colleague and I, we don't really feel it's kind of harder to come over here. West Virginia, such a wonderful, wonderful land, beautiful sceneries, tourism, the energy industrials, all booming, with the young generations, all participate. With the two houses of your legislatures work so hard to have all the bills. So we appreciate so much. You take the time from your the bill deliberations to welcome us. And Taiwan, we enjoy so much the friendship, the sister state friendship for 40 years. How about let's raise our hands. Let's give a big fight saying another 40 years of our sister state celebrations. How about that? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I wish everybody a very good health, especially Senator BLAIR, very speedy recovery, and the wonderful, wonderful prosperity of the great state of the West Virginia. So U.S. and Taiwan, go, go, go. West Virginia and Taiwan, go, go, go. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
The legislatures.
Yeah. Oh, we're getting a picture. All right.
Thank you so much.
Senate will please come to order. The Senate will please come to order. Recognize the junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our question unanimous consent to return to the third order of business.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of committee substitute for House Bill 2967, permitting a county to retain the excise taxes for the privilege of transferring title of real estate.
Message will be received, referred to Committee on Government Organization with a second reference to Committee on Finance.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4090, creating the Oil and Gas Abandoned Well Plugging Fund.
Message be received, referred to Committee on Finance.
House Bill 4161, making it illegal to scleral tattoo a person.
Message be received, referred to Committee on Health and Human Resources.
House Bill 4356, relating to administration of anesthetics.
Message be received, referred to Committee on Health and Human Resources.
House Bill 4375, speech-language pathologists and audiologists compact.
Message will be received, referred to Committee on Interstate Cooperation with a second reference to Committee on Health and Human Resources.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4378, relating to disciplining teachers.
Message be received, referred to Committee on Education.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4395, removing the requirement that a veterinarian access and report to the Controlled Substance Monitoring Database.
Message will be received, referred to Committee on Health and Human Resources.
House Bill 4410, permitting directors and executive officers of a banking institution to borrow from a banking institution with which he or she is connected.
Message will be received, referred to Committee on Banking and Insurance.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4414 relating to the selection of language and development milestones for deaf and hard of hearing children.
Message will be received, referred to Committee on Education.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4415 relating to missing and endangered children.
Message will be received, referred to Committee on the Select Committee on Children and Families with a second reference to Committee on Finance.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4438 relating to the licensing of advanced deposit wagering.
Message be received, referred to Committee on Finance.
House Bill 4559 modifying the limitations on civil actions against the perpetrator of a sexual assault or sexual abuse upon a minor.
Message will be received and referred to Committee on the Judiciary. Are there further communications from the House?
No, sir.
Communications from the Executive?
There are none.
Reports from standing committees?
Your Committee on the Workforce has had under consideration Senate Bill 76, limiting liability of employers in cases where certain crime convictions are expunged, and reports back to Committee Substitute for same, with the recommendation that the Committee Substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Respectfully submitted, Roland A. Roberts, Chair.
Report will be received. Under the bill's original double committee reference, be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 484 requiring free feminine hygiene products to be provided to female prisoners, and reports back to Committee Substitute for same, with the recommendation that the Committee Substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Ryan W. Weld, Vice Chair.
Report will be received. Under the bill's original double committee reference, be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration Senate Bill 616 relating to employment grievance procedure for public employees, and reports back to Committee Substitute for same, with the recommendation that the Committee Substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Respectfully submitted, Mark R. Maynard, Chair.
Report will be received. Under the original committee reference, be referred to Committee on the Judiciary.
Your Committee on Pensions has had under consideration Senate Bill 654 allowing certain sheriffs transfer from PERS to Deputy Sheriff Retirement System, and reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Michael T. Azinger, Chair.
Report will be received. Senior Senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that the second reference on the Committee of Finance be dispensed with. The bill has a revenue-neutral effect on the budget.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Report will be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration Senate Bill 657 allowing designation of tourism development districts, and reports back to Committee Substitute for same, with the recommendation that the Committee Substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Mark R. Maynard, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration engrossed House Bill 2922 relating to requirements to obtain a final order of discharge and dismissal for possession of opiates or opioids, and has amended same, and engrossed Committee Substitute for House Bill 4275 authorizing Department of Military Affairs and Public Safety promulgate legislative rules relating to the Fire Commission, and has amended same, and reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Ryan W. Weld, Vice Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration engrossed House Bill 3039 relating to a court's consideration of the expression of a preference by a child in certain child custody matters, and has amended same, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Ryan W. Weld, Vice Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Military has had under consideration engrossed House Bill 4030, increasing limit for application for original appointment as a firefighter to 40 years of age for honorably discharged veterans, and has amended same, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Ryan W. Weld, Chair.
Report will be received.
That's all I have, sir.
Reports from select committees?
There are none.
Introduction of bills. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that Senate Bills 716 through 725 be considered introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system.
Junior senator from the 17th requests unanimous consent that Senate Bills number 716 through Senate Bill number 725 be considered introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Resolutions.
Senate Resolution 34 by Senator Stallings designating February 7th, 2020 as Dental Hygienists Day.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 23 by Senators Beach and Romano requesting study of state police's increased duties and responsibilities.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 24 by Senator Carmichael, Mr. President, naming the Fire Chief Lee Thomas Memorial Bridge.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 25 by Senator Azinger requesting study on impact of future electromagnetic pulse catastrophe.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 26 by Senator Maynard urging U.S. Congress reopen public lands.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day. Are there further resolutions?
No, sir.
Motions. Petitions.
No. There are none.
Bills on third reading.
Engrossed Senate Bill 482, eliminating permit requirement for storing concealed handgun and vehicle on school property for persons over 21. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 482 would amend a single section of the state code. It's in Chapter 61, our criminal code, Article 7, which is an article dealing with dangerous weapons, and it's Section 11A. Under current law, a person with a concealed weapons permit is allowed to store or keep a weapon in his vehicle on school property as long as it's locked and out of sight, not visible. This bill would change the law to allow that opportunity to every person who's at least 21 years of age and who is not prohibited by state or federal law from possessing a firearm. I'd be happy to try to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge the bill's passage.
Is there further discussion? Recognize the junior senator from the, senior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator from Morgan yield?
Does the senator yield? The senator does yield.
Yes.
Senator, removing the requirement that you have a concealed handgun permit from this bill, what are the steps that you have to overcome to get a concealed handgun permit?
What are the steps that are required to get a concealed carry permit?
That's right.
It requires, I believe, the taking of a class and a fee, and the issuance of the permit from usually through the sheriff's department.
Is there any background check that is undergone as part of that process?
I believe there is.
Thank you, Senator.
Yes.
Mr. President, I'll just speak briefly against this bill. I mean, what we're doing here is saying that people with no background check and no training can now bring guns on school property. And I know that we've already allowed people with concealed carry permits to do this, and I think some of my friends that are proponents of this bill remind me that I supported that bill to allow people with concealed carry permits to have guns in their cars on school property. But what we're doing here is saying that anyone who has no training and no background check done can also take their gun on school property. And while that hopefully nothing bad will ever come of this, I think it's a bad direction to go, and I would urge a no vote.
Further discussion. Is there further discussion? Senator wish to close debate? Senators?
Yes, Mr. President, just briefly. A couple years ago, this legislature gave life to the constitutional right recognized both in the West Virginia Constitution and the federal Constitution under the Second Amendment to possess and bear arms. We passed a law that said if a person is 21 years of age, he's not prohibited by federal law or state law from owning or possessing a firearm. He can carry a gun, he or she can carry a gun concealed in this state without a permit. Now, persons who are prohibited by federal and state law from possessing, owning or possessing or carrying firearms in all circumstances and in all places are persons who are convicted felons, persons who've been convicted of domestic violence, persons who have restraining orders against them, persons who are addicted to drugs, habitual drug users, persons who've been dishonorably discharged from the military of the United States. Those are all prohibited persons under 6177. This doesn't change that at all. This bill, if it passes and becomes law, will say that if a person is permitted to carry a handgun concealed, then he or she is also permitted to drive onto the parking lot of a school. That's basically what we're talking about. This is not going to allow any guns into school buildings or outside of a vehicle. But if you have a gun in your vehicle and it's locked and concealed, hidden from view, and you have the lawful right to be in possession of that gun, then it's not a crime. It's not a crime to have your car in the parking lot of the school. I urge passage of the bill.
Question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 33 yeas, 1 nay, 0 absent not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 620, authorizing Division of Corrections and Rehabilitation approve home plans for inmates. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? Senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 620 would amend one section of the code that's already current law, Chapter 62, Article 12, Section 13, and it would create and add to the code a new section designated Section 13C. And the bill addresses paroles for nonviolent offenders. It allows the Commissioner of Corrections to establish a program for nonviolent offender parole release, a plan under the Division of Corrections rather than the parole board. And so to be eligible for participation in such a plan, an eligible inmate must, 1, have served the statutory minimum sentence, 2, be parole eligible, 3, be not serving a sentence for a crime of violence, a controlled substance offense involving actual or threatened violence, or a felony involving the use of a firearm, or a felony involving a minor victim. So those offenses, persons serving sentences for those offenses are all excluded from participation in this program. And also, to be eligible, the person must have completed his or her individualized rehabilitation treatment program. Participants are subject to all the existing rules of parole, and this bill authorizes the Commissioner of Corrections to approve home plans. Finally, the bill clarifies that one must successfully complete the rehabilitation treatment plan to be eligible for release on parole, but allows for eligibility for release whenever the rehabilitation plan is successfully completed. Mr. President, I'll be happy to try to answer questions from any of the senators. Otherwise, I urge passage of this bill.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Not. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action and send it to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 625, creating one-day annual license to permit charitable auction of sealed rare antique or vintage liquor bottles. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 625 would amend the state code by adding to it a new section, and it would go in Chapter 60, Article 7, which is the section addressing licenses to operate private clubs, and it would be designated as Section 8B. And this bill authorizes the ABC Commission to issue a license for limited charitable auctioning of rare antique or vintage bottles of liquor in limited circumstances for a true charitable purpose, while not violating any other code sections regarding the sale and use of alcohol as a prize or the rights of retail liquor outlets licensed throughout the state. Mr. President, this bill comes to us as an agency bill, and in response to, I think in response or reaction to such an event that I believe was held at the Clay Center, for which there was not clear legal authority. And so I'd be happy to try to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill. I would say also the members will remember the body amended on the floor yesterday the fee for the license, and I think stands now at $100 instead of what was printed in the committee substitute. So the engrossed bill lowers the fee. I urge passage of the bill.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action and send it to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 629, clarifying alcohol by volume percentage for certain wines. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 629 would amend 3 existing sections of the state code. And they are in Chapter 60 under Article 8, which regulates the sale of wines. The amended sections would be Section 2, Section 18, and Section 29. This also comes to us as an agency bill, and it amends some definitions and creates some definitions. It changes the definitions for the following terms: fortified wine, wine, and wine specialty shop. So the bill also defines a new term, non-fortified dessert wine and table wine. So these changes address the alcohol by volume percentage of wine, and the changes clarify that table wine alcohol by volume is up to 14%. The bill defines non-fortified dessert wines as an alcohol by volume between 14 and 17%, and it clarifies that fortified wines are up to 24%. The bill clarifies that wine may be sold by a wine specialty shop for off-premises consumption only where tasting and sampling have been authorized. Lastly, the bill removes the bonding requirement for distributors and suppliers and certain wineries or farm wineries acting in those capacities. Does continue the penalties for a distributor or supplier who fails to pay taxes or maintain its good standing with the state and its agencies, in particular the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission. During the committee's consideration of the bill, we had testimony from General Counsel to the State ABC Commission who told us that he was unaware of there ever having been an action upon one of those bonds. Mr. President, I'll be happy to try to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge the bill's passage.
Is there further discussion? Not. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4042, requiring agencies exempt from some or all of state purchasing requirements to adopt procedural rules. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senior senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for House Bill 4042 requires agencies that are exempt from purchasing division procurement procedures to adopt rules establishing their own internal procurement guidelines. Agencies that are already exempt must file their rules by September 1st of this year. Agencies that become exempt after the bill's effective date are required to file their rules before the exemption would take effect. I'll entertain questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Is there further discussion? Recognize the senior senator from the 5th.
Would the senior senator from the 6th yield?
Senator yield. Senator does yield.
Let me ask you a question. We went through a process a number of years ago in that it was very laborious process from the purchasing division from the state of West Virginia. My personal opinion is we really need to revamp our purchasing division in West Virginia. It is too onerous and too complicated. So in higher education in particular, we went through a process to exempt them out. They do have their own procedural rules, and that's housed at the Higher Education Policy Commission. Would this require them to then do this now?
Yes, they would be included in that, but that's why the amendment was made yesterday. And as long as they have the rules, then they'll be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Further discussion? Not. Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Are there further bills on third reading?
No, sir.
Bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 136, prohibiting certain misleading lawsuit advertising practices. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not the bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 138, incentives for consolidating local government. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 142, expanding coyote control program through voluntary assessment on breeding cows. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not the bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 203, allowing certain deductions from personal income tax refunds. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not the bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 522, relating to compensation awards to crime victims. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not the bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 615, declaring certain claims against state as moral obligations of state. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not the bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 623, allowing non-citizen of U.S. be eligible for teaching certificates. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not the bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading. Are there further bills on second reading?
No, sir.
Bills on first reading. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that all bills on first reading be considered read a first time and advanced to second reading.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Introduction of guest. Remarks by members of the Senate. The senator from Tucker County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be really brief. I just want to remind the members today is day 30 of a 60-day session, and as of yet, there has not been a roads bill moved. No action from us, no action from the governor, so I just want to bring that to people's attention because it's still a huge problem in our districts, and just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further remarks? Miscellaneous business, the junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Question unanimous consent to return to the 12th order of business.
Without objection to the 12th order of business. Yes,
that's correct.
Under remarks.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of quick things. One, I just noticed in the conversation earlier that Asians and doctors and politics is a universal thing, apparently, listening to our colleagues that came for the Taiwan. But most importantly, what I'm standing for is it came to my attention that we have two very special birthdays today. Casey and Richie Novak's birthdays are today. If the Senate would give them a little clap and applause for having a happy birthday.
Thank you. Miscellaneous business, junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pending announcements, I move the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Are there announcements? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee on the judiciary will meet today at 3:00 p.m. in the Judiciary Committee Room 208 West Wing.
The senator from Jefferson County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Education will meet today at 2 o'clock in 4:51 a.m. I just want to let the committee members know that if we don't finish our agenda, we will come back 15 minutes after Judiciary and Finance are over.
The senior senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Senate Finance Committee will meet this afternoon at 3 p.m., room 451M, and the agenda has been posted.
Further, the senior senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Government Organization will meet today at 2 p.m. in 208 West.
Senator from Marshall County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Health will meet today at 1 p.m. in Senate Finance. Thank you.
Further announcements. Further, the senator from Tucker County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Energy will meet today at 1 o'clock in 208 West.
Further announcements. The senator from Greenbrier County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Labor Caucus lunch following session in 3:30 West.
Are there further announcements? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.? All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the Senate adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Please vacate the chamber at this time. All members and guests in the galleries will please rise as we are led in prayer this morning by Pastor Ralph Perry. Pastor Perry is the guest of the gentleman, the 24th, Doug at Rodegaro.
Pray. Father, we are truly blessed to be able to live in the greatest country in the world and also to be able to live in the greatest state in this country. So, Lord, I pray that you would bless each and every member of this house. Lord, I ask that you would give them wisdom, give them the understanding of what is best for this great state of West Virginia. Lord, I just pray that the business that is conducted within these walls would be profitable, Lord, for not only the posterity but also the prospering of this wonderful state. We love you, and we bring you honor and glory. In the precious name of Jesus, amen.
Amen. Members and guests will please remain standing as we are led in the Pledge of Allegiance by the gentleman, the 24th, Doug at Rodegaro.
Would everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members and guests may be seated. Reading of the Journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, Charleston, Wednesday, February 5th, 2020.
The gentleman, the 22nd, Doug Maynard.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further the reading of the journal be dispensed with and it be approved as having been read.
The gentleman, the 22nd, Doug Maynard, asks unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and it be approved as having been read. Are there objections? The chair hears no objections. Introduction of guests. Introduction of guests. The lady from the 38th, Doug Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Joining me today is my husband, Marlon Witt, and our work colleague, Annette Kosmowski. And we all work at Arnett Carvis Toothman, and would the House make them welcome?
The gentleman, the 62nd, Douglas Bibby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning I met with several of the volunteers of the West Virginia Civil Air Patrol. And to give you a little background, since the Civil Air Patrol's formation during the earliest days of World War II, this vigilant organization of citizen airmen has been committed to service to America. Each year, more than 650 volunteer members of the West Virginia Wing perform search and rescue, disaster relief, emergency service, and homeland security missions. The Civil Air Patrol is responsible for 90% of all inland search and rescue missions in the United States, and they all are accomplished by the Civil Air Patrol's unpaid volunteers. The West Virginia Wing, through its all-volunteer force, provides rapid response during natural disasters, most recently in the aftermath of the 1,000-year flood in 2016. The West Virginia Wing also plays a strategic role at the National and International Scout Jamborees, working with the National Guard and state agencies, providing aerial photography, live video, drug demand reduction presentations, and aerospace education zone highlighting the CAP's STEM kits. In 2019, the Wing helped ensure smooth operations for the World Scout Jamboree at the Summit Bechtel Reserve, where over 40,000 scouts and leaders from 152 nations assembled. In all, 27 Wing members worked to provide support, with air crews conducting 49 aircraft flights, providing 76 videos and more than 400 photos of the massive gathering to the National Guard. Military officials from the Pentagon and West Virginia praised the Wing for its role in the Jamboree, and the State Air National Guard highlighted the Wing's ability to respond to emerging incidents as part of its Incident Awareness and Assessment Plan. In 2019, the Wing's annual summer encampment at Camp Dawson drew 144 cadets from 6 states. Cadets scaled a climbing wall and 60-foot rappelling tower, honed their skills on a firing range, and took courses in leadership development and in land and water survival. And they received Black Hawk and C-130 orientation rides, among other activities. Also in 2019, the Wing's Aerospace Education Weekend grew into a 3-day event for more than 100 members. Cadets spent 2 days immersed in aviation tours, displays, and hands-on aerospace activities. In addition, the Wing recognized the Pierpont Community and Technical College's Aviation Technology Program with the 2019 Frank G. Brewer Memorial Aerospace National Award for Organizational Excellence in Aerospace Education. The West Virginia Wing also received the National Aerospace Education Excellence Award in recognition of making the biggest change in a small wing at the 2019 National Civilian Air Patrol Conference in August. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in recognizing the all-volunteer cadets and senior members of the West Virginia Wing of the Civil Air Patrol who are with us today in the North Gallery. Thank you.
The gentleman, the 27th, Douglas Ellington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of all the Mercer County delegates, we have a couple of our special EMS people from Princeton Rescue Squad, Miss Loretta Justice and Helen Phillips in the North Gallery. If they would stand and the House make them feel very welcome.
The gentleman, the 7th, Douglas Barnhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the North Gallery today, we've got some students from Ritchie County High School in civics class, and they are here today with their teachers, Mr. Justin Hodge and Mr. Brian Darty. And I would ask that they please stand, and I'd ask the House to stand and make them feel welcome today. Thank you.
The gentleman, the 48th, Douglas Miley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of all of the Harrison County delegates, I want to introduce Mr. Bob Osborne. He's here for AARP. If the House will make him feel welcome.
The gentleman, the 50th, Douglas Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of all the delegates that represent Marion and Montague counties, it's a very special day for me today. In the South Gallery, we have a group of students and faculty and staff from the Milan Park Elementary School. Their trip is sponsored every year by my union, the United Mine Workers of America. We're partners in education with that school, so I would ask everyone who's here from Milan to stand and the House give them a warm welcome, please. And also, Mr. Speaker, if I might, I want to give a shout out to a couple of my union brothers in the gallery who run the Partners in Education program for our union. They devote and volunteer all their time to educating children about coal mine safety and how important the coal mines are to our area. They do this every year voluntarily. Please say hello to my buddy Mark Mold Dorsey and Jimmy Murray. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
The gentleman, the 17th, Dr. Lovejoy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two introductions today. In the North Gallery here behind me, we have Mike Tatum from Cabell 911. And here in the West Gallery at the top row, we've got several hardworking members of the SEIU, that's the Service Employees International Union. If they could all stand, House, please make them welcome.
The gentleman, the 51st, Dr. Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have a few guests today from Montague County's first responders who are helping to keep the residents of Montague and Preston County safe. They're here today for EMS Day at the Capitol. So I would ask you to please stand when I call your name. Chief Forrest Wien, Pat Cornell, and Dylan Olivito. We appreciate you being here, and if the House could please make them welcome.
The gentleman, the first, Dr. Schwartzmiller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have some iron workers today visiting. We have from Local 549 out of Wheeling, Local 768 out of Huntington, Local 787 out of Parkersburg visiting. And we all know iron workers, when they're doing their job, they're building and they're moving their way up. Well, we also have today a gentleman that started out as an iron worker and worked his way all the way up to the #3 position in the country as the International General Treasurer. Mr. Bill Dean is with us today. I'd ask you all to stand, welcome them, and ask him to stand, and everybody stand. Thank you.
The gentleman, the 19th, Dr. Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of all the delegates from Wayne County, I'd like to announce that we have several pages with us today from Kellogg Elementary, and these pages are as follows. Pages, if you would, stand, please, when your name is announced. Austin Adkins, Xyton McDaniel, Riley Hedrick, Isabella Tippett, Ava Clark, Katie Dowis, Landry Paxton, and Kason Paxton. House, please make them welcome.
The gentleman, the 19th, Dr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of myself, Delegates Hicks, Lovejoy, and Rohrbach, we also have some additional pages from Kellogg Elementary today. If they would please stand, they are Kirk Walker, Madison Legg, Peyton Bailey, Maddie Chafin, Lilia Chafin, Taryn Curry, Peyton Smith, Isabella Stone, Anna Taylor, Jacelyn Kay, and Cyrus Roberts. Additionally, I have some visitors in the South Gallery. They are my former students at Wayne High School. They are currently biomedical students, and they are at the Capitol lobbying on behalf of improving the protections and the presumptive care for firefighters. If they would please stand when I call their names. They are Walker Tatum, Hannah Thompson, Skylar Archer, and Jade Clark, along with their teacher, Jason Gibbs. Please give them a warm round of applause.
The gentleman, the 43rd, Dr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Hartman and myself, I want to welcome from the Elkins Composite Squadron, the Civil Air Force, Air Patrol, Captain Debbie Tyser, and some other folks down here from Elkins. If the House would please make them feel welcome.
The gentleman to 36, Delegate Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we have some carpenters here from Local 439. If the House would stand and make them feel welcome. Thank you.
The gentleman, the 22nd, Delegate Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of this whole House, today is EMS Day, and if we forgot any EMS providers or anybody that works in that space, would you just please stand, and will the House please make them feel welcome?
Are there further introductions? If not, reports to standing committees.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 4159 relating to the manufacture and sale of hard cider. Reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 4663, eliminating certain payments to the Alcohol Beverage Control Commissioner from distilleries and mini distilleries. Reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 4626, West Virginia Development Achievements Transparency Act. Reports the same back with amendment with recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Technology and Infrastructure has had under consideration House Bill 4613, allowing the Division of Highways use money in the Gas Field Highway Repair and Horizontal Drilling Waste Study Fund. Reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Technology and Infrastructure has had in consideration House Bill 4015 relating to broadband enhancement and expansion, House Bill 4512 creating a work permit driver's license program, and House Bill 4522 allowing division to accept documents compliant with Real ID Act for proof of identity. Reports the same back with amendment with recommendation that each do pass as amended, that they be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
The report will be received and all bills will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Infrastructure, Technology and Infrastructure has had under consideration House Bill 2961, permitting the Commissioner to require a water supply system be equipped with a backflow prevention assembly. Reports the same back with amendment with recommendation that it do pass as amended, that it be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
The report will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
Your Committee on Technology and Infrastructure has had under consideration House Bill 2897 relating to driving restrictions in school zones. Reports the same back with amendment with the recommendation that it do pass as amended, that it be referred to Committee on Education.
The report will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Education.
Your Committee on Business, Entrepreneurship, and Economic Development has had under consideration House Bill 4519, establishing the Summer Youth Intern Pilot Program within Department of Commerce. Reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to the Committee on Education.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Education.
Your Committee on Small Business, Entrepreneurship, and Economic Development has had under consideration House Bill 4449 requiring state purchases of certain items to be made from authorized dealers in this state. Reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 364, authorizing the Department of Transportation to promulgate legislative rules. Reports the same back with amendment with recommendation that it do pass as amended.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on Senior, Children, and Family Issues has had under consideration House Bill 4648, the Parenting Fairness Act of 2020. Reports the same back with amendment with the recommendation that it do pass as amended, that it be referred to Committee on Judiciary.
The report will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration House Bill 4069, West Virginia Student Religious Liberties Act, reports back to committee substitute, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
The report will be received.
Originating in the Committee on Education is House Bill 4735, relating to the employment of school nurses or licensed practical nurses. It's reported with the recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The report will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4478, creating a lifetime ban for commercial drivers involved in human trafficking, and House Bill 4576, establishing a procedure for correcting errors in deeds of trust, and mortgages, reports the same back with recommendation that each do pass.
The report will be received. Are there further reports of standing committees? If none, reports of select committees. Messages from the executive.
Delegate Hanshaw, Mr. Speaker, presents a communication from His Excellency the Governor advising that on February 5th, 2020, he approved House Bill 4130.
The message will be received. Are there further messages from the executive? If none, messages from the Senate.
The Clerk of the Senate announced that the Senate has passed without amendment committee substitute for House Bill 4091, allowing for expedited oil and gas well permitting upon payment of applicable expedited fees.
The message will be received.
The Senate has passed with its title amendment House Bill 4393, relating to making suffocation and asphyxiation crimes.
The message will be received. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that the bill be taken up for immediate consideration.
The lady from the 49th asks unanimous consent that consideration of House Bill 4393 be taken up for immediate consideration. Are there objections? The chair hears no objections. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 4393 creates the criminal offense of suffocation and asphyxiation and establishes criminal penalties therefor. The amendment from the Senate is only a title amendment. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I urge adoption of the amendment.
The lady from the 49th moves that the House concur in the Senate title amendment. Those in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it, and the chair declares the motion adopted. The House has concurred in the Senate title amendment. The question now before the House is the passage of the bill with the Senate title amendment. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 99 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 member absent not voting. Majority of members elected having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. Are there further amendments to the title? If not, then the title as amended by the Senate and concurred in by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Further message from the Senate.
The Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 190, modifying the requirement that racetrack participate in West Virginia Thoroughbred Development Fund by certain date.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 300, updating certain terms in West Virginia Corporation Net Income Tax Act.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 308, creating criminal penalties for violation of orders issued for protection of victims of financial exploitation.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Seniors, Children, and Family Issues, then the Committee on Judiciary.
The Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 316, relating to Oil and Gas Conservation Commission membership.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Energy.
The Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 544, authorizing pharmacists and pharmacy interns administer vaccines.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources.
The Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 551, relating to Water and Wastewater Investment and Infrastructure Improvement Act.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization, then the Committee on Finance.
The Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 560, permitting nursing home use trained individuals administer medication.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources. Are there further messages from the Senate? If not, resolutions.
House Concurrent Resolution 64, United States Army Specialist 5 Benny Ray Snodgrass Memorial Bridge.
Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of resolutions introduced be dispensed with and that each resolution be considered as formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the chamber automation system.
The lady from the 49th asks unanimous consent that further reading of resolutions introduced be dispensed with and each resolution be considered as having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Are there objections? The chair hears no objections. Petitions, motions. The gentleman in the 30th, Douglas Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Rule 82 and the bill being in the possession of the committee for 5 legislative days, I move that House Bill 4368 relating to the Medical Cannabis Act be discharged from the Committee of Health and Human Resources.
The gentleman the 30th has moved that House Bill 4368 be discharged from the Committee on Health and Human Resources. Lady
Mr.
from the
Speaker,
49th.
I move that the motion to discharge House Bill 4368 be tabled.
The lady from the 48th moves that the motion to discharge House Bill 4368 be laid upon the table. This is not a debatable question. Those in favor of the lady's motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Chair is in error. The unstated point of order is correct. The question is on the lady's motion that the bill be laid upon the table. The motion be laid upon the table. Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. No. The roll call has now been demanded. Is the demand sustained? Is the demand sustained? Demand is sustained. Those in favor of the lady's motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. For what purpose does the gentleman at 30th, Douglas Bates, seek recognition?
Point of inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Just to clarify what we should do here. If we want to move to my motion to discharge the bill from committee, we first need to dismiss with the gentlelady's motion. Is that correct?
Gentleman is correct.
We need to defeat that motion if we're to get to the discharge motion.
The gentleman is correct.
So if I want to get to the discharge motion, I should press red no.
Correct, correct.
If I wanted to get to the discharge motion.
The gentleman is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman is 66, Douglas Espinoza.
Point of inquiry.
Gentleman may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, if we wish to support the majority leader's motion to table the gentleman's motion, we would vote green on this vote, correct?
That is also correct.
Thank you.
The gentleman the third, for what purpose does Douglas Fluharty seek recognition?
Point of inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, gentleman may proceed.
Who's this lead sponsor of that bill?
Chair does not have the bill before him.
Read the title.
Who is it? Chair is advised that the lead sponsor is the gentleman the 13th.
Okay, thank you. And can we have the short title read?
Clerk could read a short title. It is the title as shown, relating to the Medical Cannabis Act.
All right, thank you.
Relating to the Medical Cannabis Act.
If there are no other members seeking recognition, the question before the House then is the motion by the lady from the 49th that the motion to discharge House Bill 4368 from the Committee on Health and Human Resources be laid upon the table. A roll call has been demanded and the demand was sustained. So the question now is on the motion to lay on the table. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 54 ayes, 44 nays, and 2 members absent not voting. A majority having voted in the affirmative, chair declares the motion adopted. Are there further motions? If not, bills introduced.
House Bill 4712, consolidating the 55 county school boards into 10 district school boards.
Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with and that each bill be considered as formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the chamber automation system.
The lady from the 49th asks unanimous consent that further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with and that each bill be considered as having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Are there objections to the request? Chair hears no objections. Unfinished business. Bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4352, removing the use of post-criminal conduct in professional and occupational initial licensure or certification in decision making.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection and recognizes the gentleman of the 56, Douglas Howell, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of the bill is to remove the barriers for employment for individuals, criminal records who seek licensure or certification in an occupation regulated by the fire marshal, and to reduce the number of hours necessary experience to qualify as a journeyman sprinkler. The bill was recommended by the Joint Committee on Volunteer Fire Departments and Emergency Medical Services for introduction and passage during the 2020 regular session. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are the members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? The gentleman the second, Douglas Desario, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I stand today in support of the bill. I was never against the original intent of the bill, and I'm satisfied with the compromise that we came to, so I urge passage of the bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman the 15th, Douglas Foster.
I would also stand in support of the bill. Before this, it was 10,000 hours. We can at least get it down to a point where, I mean, you can't get down to the same amount as an airline, commercial airline pilot, but at least we can get down to like close to double an airline pilot. I think that kind of makes sense. So I would support the bill.
Are there other members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 98 ayes, 0 nays, and 2 members absent not voting. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4352.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4380, updating the regulatory board review schedule.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objections and recognizes the gentleman of 56, Douglas Howe, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to update the regulatory board review schedule under Chapter 4, Article 10. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? The gentleman of 36, Douglas Robinson, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the chair yield?
Chairman does yield.
How you doing today, Mr. Chairman?
Doing well.
Hey, I was reading the bill here. It says, so these are supposed to be done every 12 years?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you know what cost they're completed at? What the cost to the state is every time one of these are completed?
It's done with state employees, so there's no fiscal note. They're already there.
Okay. Are there any reason why a board would be, I guess, reviewed more frequently than the 12 years suggested in the bill?
Yeah, you're referring to the Appraisers Board, which was reviewed in 2017, but they found some issues, and this gives them the ability to see if they have corrected those issues.
Okay, so that would be the one in 2020 that we're going to do this year?
Yeah, yes, sir.
And then there'll be another one in 2027?
That's their normal schedule.
Okay, so that would be, we'll have one 3 years later, 2017, 2020, that's 3 years, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then 20 to 2027, that would be 7 years, right?
It would, but it puts them back on their normal schedule. Correct?
Okay, and then you have them again in 2031.
That's accurate. That may be an error, but we can get the Senate to fix it.
So you have an error in this bill?
I just said that.
Okay.
We can get the Senate to fix it. It's no big deal.
Oh, yeah, just pass it. No big deal. Speak to the bill, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, gentleman's recognized. Proceed.
I thought I was rising just to ask. I thought that there were some issues with this board that needed to be reviewed more frequently, but the chairman just pointed out there's an error. This is number 2. This is bill number 2 where an error came out. We admitted on the floor, and we said, don't worry about it. Kick it across the building. They'll fix it for us, okay? Just point out that's strike 2 for Gov. Org, guys. Thank you.
Are there other members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? The gentleman of 56, Douglas Howe, to close debate. Chairman does not wish to close debate. The question is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 74 ayes, 25 nays, and 1 member absent not voting. A majority having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4380.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action to the House, to the Senate, request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4509, transferring the parole board to the Division of Corrections and Rehabilitation for purposes of administrative and other support.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? The chair hears no objection and recognizes the gentleman of 56, Douglas Howell, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to place the parole board under the Division of Corrections and the rehabilitation for administrative purposes, and to remove the limit of 1 board member per county, to create a vice chair position to serve in the absence of the chair, and to create a temporary substitute board member list. The bill is by the request of the Department of Military Affairs and Public Safety. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are the members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, then those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 99 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 member absent not voting. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4509.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action to the House, to the Senate, request concurrence therein. Are there further bills on third reading? If not, bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 46, defining pepper spray and exempting from definition of deadly weapons.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 470, relating to the use of crossbow to hunt.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 487, providing exception that all DNR payments be deposited within 24 hours.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 500, relating to Class Y special crossbow hunting permit.
Are there amendments?
Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources moves to amend the bill on page 1, section 42W, line 4, after the semicolon, by inserting the word "or."
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment as just read by the clerk. Are there members who wish to speak to the adoption of the amendment? If the gentleman on the 11th, Douglas Atkinson.
This amendment was purely technical in nature.
Are there other members who wish to speak to the amendment? If not, those in favor of adoption of the amendment will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it, and the chair declares the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 501, adding protection, operation of North Bend Trail, Greenbrier River Trail, and Elk River Trail to Parks and Recreation section of DNR.
Are there amendments?
Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources moves to amend the bill on page 2, section 3, line 32, after the word "of" by striking out approximately 60 and 57/100ths of a mile.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. The gentleman on the 11th, Douglas Atkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment was requested by the DNR and simply removed unnecessary language pertaining to the section of Parks and Recreation's jurisdiction to maintain the CSX railway system right-of-way designated as the North Bend Rail Trail. Thank you.
Are there members who wish to speak to the adoption of the amendment? If not, those in favor of adoption of the amendment will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Chair declares the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading. Next bill on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4083, requiring the West Virginia Parkways Authority to accept the use of credit and debit cards for paying tolls.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4361, relating to insurance law violations.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4444, establishing medals of valor and medals for bravery for emergency medical services, firefighters, and law enforcement officers.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4453, 43, expanding the eligibility requirements for private investigator and security guard licensure.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4466, Certificates of Insurance Act.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4477, West Virginia Mutual to Mutual Insurance Holding Act.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4502, relating to insurance adjusters.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4515, relating to wildlife resources eligibility for a license or permit application.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4585, providing immunity from civil or criminal liability for making good faith reports of suspected or known instances of child abuse or neglect.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4607, authorizing the operation of mobile shops for hair, nail, cosmetology, and aesthetics.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4664, clarifying the offense of driving under the influence of alcohol, controlled substances, or drugs.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4691.
Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be postponed one day.
The lady from the 49th moves that consideration of House Bill 4691 be postponed by 1 day. Those in favor of the lady's motion will please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. Action is postponed 1 day. Are there further bills on second reading? If not, bills on first reading.
Senate Bill 321, relating to collection of tax and priority of distribution of estate or property and receivership.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 532, distributing assets remaining in municipal policemen's or firemen's pension and relief fund on death of last retiree or beneficiary.
The bill will be advanced.
House Bill 2527, relating to forgery and other crimes concerning lottery tickets.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4003, relating to telehealth insurance requirements.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4061, Health Benefit Plan Network Access and Adequacy Act.
The bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4455.
Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be postponed 1 day.
The lady from the 49th moves that consideration of House Bill 4455 be postponed by 1 day. Those in favor of the motion will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares the motion adopted. Action will be postponed 1 day. Next bill on first reading.
House Bill 4524, making the entire state wet or permitting the sale of alcoholic liquors for off-premises consumption.
The bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4582, declaring certain claims against agencies of the state to be moral obligations of the state.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4611, relating to fireworks.
The bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4618, relating to deadly weapons for sale for hire.
The bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4661, relating to the powers of the Public Service Commission and the regulation of natural gas utilities.
The bill will be advanced. Are there further bills on first reading? If not, leaves of absence. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For our colleague, Delegate Jennings.
Does the chair hear objection to a leave of absence being granted? The chair hears no objection and a leave of absence shall be granted. Remarks by members? Remarks by members. The gentleman of 28th, Delegate Pack.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning. Today is Veterans Visibility Day here at the Capitol. As many of you know, West Virginia has among the highest rate of veterans per capita among its citizens. Nationwide, roughly 7% of citizens are veterans of the armed forces. In West Virginia, that number exceeds 10%. In fact, many of our colleagues here in the House are veterans. When I was a boy, I can remember my grandfather and many of the older men I knew were all World War II veterans. These members of what we call the greatest generation risked everything in pursuit of liberating Europe and the Pacific. Today, this generation is quickly fading into history. As I stand here, I cannot think of a World War II veteran that I know personally. I'm sure I know some, but none come immediately to mind. We celebrate this generation for their grit and sacrifice, and rightly so. They saved the world, returned to a grateful nation with ticker tape parades, and set about rebuilding this nation. Our current segment of aging veterans didn't receive such treatment. The World War II veterans I remember as a child are now the veterans of the Vietnam War. These folks didn't return to a grateful nation. They didn't return to ticker tape parades. They returned to scorn, hatred, and neglect. No one who has ever worn the uniform of this great nation should have or should ever be treated with such disrespect. I wish I could say that those times have changed. While it's true that those veterans who served in the jungles of Vietnam and Cambodia and elsewhere in the South Pacific are not now reviled and mistreated, there does remain a great injustice in West Virginia. Mr. Speaker, in 2014, this legislature passed Senate Bill 523, which authorized the Secretary of the Department of Veterans Assistance and the Commissioner of Agriculture to transfer property at Pinecrest, the site of Jackie Withrow Hospital, to Veterans Assistance for the purpose of constructing a veterans skilled nursing facility in Berkeley. This bill passed the House on March 7, 2014 by a vote of 95-0. 26 current members of this House voted in the affirmative. Last night on my way home, I drove past Jackie Withrow. There remains no nursing home. There is no nursing home under construction. In fact, ground has not been broken. There have been 6 budgets proposed since 2014 by 2 different governors. Not one dime has been appropriated in any of the governor's budgets to my knowledge. Mr. Speaker, this needs to change. I humbly request that each of you, my colleagues, join me in asking the governor to rectify this injustice. Our nation's heroes deserve better. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman to 30th, Douglas Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And before I proceed, I'd just ask unanimous consent that the remarks by my colleague from Raleigh be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Does the chair hear objection? None is heard.
Well, here we are at the halfway mark, and it's day 30, and that went quick. Mr. Speaker, it's been a glass is half full and a glass is half empty for discharge motions this past week. And where I come from, you just don't worry about that. You just ask for another glass. 2 weeks ago, I addressed this body in an attempt to get action on the decriminalisation, regulation and taxation of cannabis. And it's clear on day 30 that despite what I believe to be the support of the majority of the members in this body and of the people that we represent, that this bill, not appearing on an agenda and being triple referenced to 3 major committees, that opportunity for cannabis is dead for this year. And I think that's something we'll come to regret. Nevertheless, this body has the opportunity to act on a related matter that has even greater support from our constituents, and I believe in this chamber, than adult use, and that is medical cannabis. In 2017, 3 years ago, we passed the Medical Cannabis Act. And I'd remind the body that it was a discharge motion that enabled that bill to eventually come to the floor. Without that motion, the Medical Cannabis Act would have not become law. Mr. Speaker, yet again, in the words of our governor, it is unbelievable that 1,000 days have passed and we still do not have a functioning medical cannabis program. It is a disgrace that it will be over another year before patients can receive medicine to ease their pain and suffering. That being said, that delay has provided for the opportunity to address some of the flaws that existed with the original language in the medical cannabis bill, mostly through the legislative rulemaking process. Regrettably, a few flaws remain. House Bill 4368 attempts to correct those flaws. House Bill 4368 is not my bill. House Bill 4368 is not a Democratic bill. House Bill 4368 is a bill offered by my Republican colleague from across the aisle, the gentleman from Putnam, Mason and Jackson, the delegate from the 13th. And I thank him for his leadership on this issue. The gentleman's bill does 3 simple things. It expands by 2 the number of serious conditions for which cannabis can be prescribed. It provides for rulemaking authority to the Medical Cannabis Board to allow the use of a medicine in its preferred and most effective form, inhalation and ingestion. And finally, it allows and provides protections to those individuals that visit our state with a valid medical cannabis card from arrest for the possession of medicine. Three things I think the majority of us in here would support if given the opportunity to do so. Three things that are needed for a functional medical cannabis program, and that over 80% of the filled prescriptions are for in our neighboring state of Ohio. Without these three things, our medical cannabis program, when it does come online over a year from now, will fail, and we'll have to answer to our constituents for that. In closing, Mr. Speaker, in my second year here, I sat back there, and there was a delegate that sat down here. He or I were on different committees and belonged to different parties, and we didn't have a whole lot to do with each other. He had been appointed to his seat and had missed the first 2 weeks of the session. And I didn't have any reason to ask or to know why. To that point, the only thing I really knew about him was that he wore his hair in a fashion similar to the gentleman from Putnam or Raleigh. For those of you that weren't here that day, it was just another day. But for those that were here, I've no doubt you remember it now. It will be with me forever. That year we passed a bunch of drug crime bills, and we were hearing an explanation about a bill that dealt with penalties for transporting drugs across state lines. And the delegate was recognized and stood there to answer some questions, to ask some questions. And kind of random stuff. Frankly, I wasn't paying much attention, and most people weren't either. But then something happened. And it's not something I've seen since. The gentleman stopped talking and just stood there. And the chamber got quieter and quieter to listen and to hear. And in this great big room, there was silence. The gentleman said he could not support the bill, that he would not support the bill. And the reason that he could not and would not, that he was recovering from cancer. And the reason he hadn't been here was because he was undergoing chemotherapy. That he could not support the bill because it would have locked his wife up for 10 years or more for bringing him medicine from another state to help him control his pain and complications from chemotherapy without opioids, and to be on the floor that day. That medicine was a cookie, a brownie with cannabis. Mr. Speaker, someone in Clay County is dying today. Someone in Clay County is suffering today. Ladies and gentlemen, someone in your county, your district, your town, maybe even your family. Someone who could be a veteran. We can and should not let that happen when we have the power right here, right now to help. And as such, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of these people and my friend who I spoke with this morning, Delegate Bill Flanagan, I move to take off the table my motion to discharge House Bill 4368 relating to the Medical Cannabis Act from the Committee of Health and Human Resources, and I ask for the ayes and nays. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question before the House is the motion just made by the gentleman from the 30th that had the motion to discharge House Bill 4368 be taken from the table. A motion to take from the table is not a debatable question. The chair does see other lights on. The chair will assume that those were members seeking recognition under remarks by members. If the chair is in error, please rise at this time. The gentleman of 66, Douglas Espinoza.
Point of inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, the gentleman may proceed.
So the posture of the bill is that it's on the table. The gentleman's motion is to take it off the table. If we wish to have the bill remain on the table, we would vote red on this motion, assuming that it's roll call.
The gentleman is correct. A roll call has been demanded.
Thank you.
The chair has not sought to see if it was sustained, but it has been demanded. For what purpose does the gentleman of the 50th seek recognition? Dr.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. The motion to remove from the table is not debatable. Is that your ruling?
Correct. Lay on the table and take from the table are not. The underlying motion to discharge would be debatable.
I understand. Well, so if we want to, and I want to, I guess, mirror opposite of what my friend across the aisle said. So if we want to get to the motion to discharge the bill, then we must vote yes. We must vote yes on the gentleman's motion from the 30th. Is that correct?
The gentleman is correct.
Thank you, sir.
The gentleman is correct. The other lights that remain on, the chair will assume are members seeking remarks by members unless you now rise to indicate otherwise. Seeing no member seeking recognition, the question before the House then is the motion by the gentleman of the 30th that the motion to discharge House Bill 4368 be taken from the table. Those in favor of the motion will vote aye. Yes, a roll call has been demanded. Is the demand sustained? Demand is sustained. Those in favor of the motion to take from the table will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 44 ayes, 55 nays, and 1 member absent not voting. Less than a majority in favor. The chair declares that the motion is lost. Are there now further remarks by members? The lights that remain on are lights the chair will assume then are for members seeking recognition to offer remarks. The lady from the 52nd, Douglas Seipold, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also wanted to rise today to talk about the day is Veterans Visibility Day here at the Capitol. We have been blessed with the presence of many veterans roaming the halls. We should never lose the sight and the price that these men and women has paid because freedom was not free. And as it's been said, all gave some, but some gave all. So on this Veterans Visibility Day, may we stand and have a moment of silence for those who gave all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ladies, ask for a moment of silence in remembrance of those fallen. If the members and guests in the galleries will please rise, the House will observe a brief moment of silence. Members and guests may be seated. The gentleman of the 50th, Doug Angelucci, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, everyone. I will be brief. Today is EMS Day at the Capitol, and I want to take a moment to thank my friend and colleague from the 51st, Delegate Hansen, for introducing some of my EMS colleagues from Mon EMS that are up in the South Gallery. But I want to take a moment and just let you all know what EMS providers do. They are heroes. They are lifesavers. And they deal with tragedies on a regular basis. And the mental anguish and the pain sometimes that they go through is incredible. And so I sit and I look around the chamber and I realize how many of us here actually have some doings as a first responder. Our majority leader was a field personnel, a lifesaver. Delegate Maynard, Dr. Staggers is a medical director for West Virginia's largest EMS agency. Delegate Jennings is a paramedic saving lives in Preston County. So I want to take a moment and just highlight what these heroes do for us. These 3 guys in the South Gallery, when you go to Milan Pushkar Stadium, they've prepared for 60,000 people in case someone gets injured or sick. But I also want to take a moment to talk about the flooding that's happening in southern West Virginia right now. Just looking on the computer here, they've gotten over 3 inches of rain and it's still raining. And I was talking to members from Jane Care's ambulance service this morning, and he was telling me, we've got crews established all over southern West Virginia, and in some cases, they've gotten stuck in islands because of the massive flooding. But these are men and women that put themselves in harm's way. So today, I just ask for you to please keep our EMS responders in your thoughts and your prayers. Be thinking of them in southern West Virginia that's putting their lives on the line to save others. But this is what these guys do every single day. So I'd just like to take a moment to honor them and honor all of our EMS personnel across the state and thank them for what they do to saving lives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman at 26, Douglas Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you heard from the gentleman from the 26th or 50th, I'm sorry, I rise to inform everyone that McDowell County is experiencing extreme flooding at this time. I would call on the state of West Virginia and the governor to mobilize all resources as quickly as possible to the area. There are numerous roads closed, water in homes. As you heard him say, there are over 3 inches of rain have fallen, and another inch, possibly inch and a half, is expected in the next 24 hours. The rain has been constant and steady. I'm sure power will be out shortly in many areas. Talking to the 911 center in Welch, drinking water is going to be difficult in many places. So again, I would ask the state of West Virginia and what other organizations, Red Cross, that can help out with that, to be mobilized. So keep us in your prayers. It's going to be a long week ahead for us. Thank you.
The gentleman from the 28th, Dr. Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to come back around to what my colleague from the 28th started to say a while ago, and I wanted just to finish up his statement. The veteran community in West Virginia contributes $1.8 billion to the economy. So when we stand up, us veterans, and say maybe we need a nursing home somewhere in the state other than the one we have now, we're not saying that with our hat in our hand. We're saying that because we're providing that kind of funding to the state of West Virginia right now, and because of actions taken by our Veterans Committee and this House, this body, and this legislature, and signed by the governor, we have made West Virginia a magnet for veterans to come here and live and work. And so I don't think it's out of the ordinary for me to go along with my good friend from the 28th over there and say, we've got the money coming in from the veterans community, and we should build this nursing home somewhere. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman the first, Douglas McGeehan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. A lot of talk about respecting veterans today. You know, I come from a military background, and my family is no stranger to sacrifice. And our state, by and large, is no stranger to the sacrifice that so many of our citizens have given in the line of duty. But I see this time and time again because there is a general tendency for the garden variety politician to go out and give platitudes about how we should respect our veterans, how we should honor our veterans. You know, go in front of 4th of July parades, and at Memorial Day, they'll show up and speak about, you know, praising our veterans over and over again. But I'll tell you one thing that needs to be done that also simultaneously shows the utmost respect for our veterans is to simply follow the Constitution and not send our men and women in uniform overseas into undeclared, unconstitutional, unnecessary foreign wars over and over again. That is the best way to show respect to the men and women in uniform serving our great country. So when the rubber meets the road, and I present you with an option to do that, show some courage and some respect, just like our veterans have.
The gentleman, the 48th, Douglas Hamrick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yesterday, we had quite a long day with the Technology and Infrastructure Committee beginning at 8 a.m. We went back in last night at 6:30, and I think we got a significant amount of work done in that committee for one of the subject matter committees. But we worked on a piece of legislation that was a agency bill from DMV, a work permit driver's license, and I think that's it's a pretty good bill. I think it does some significant things to help West Virginians. We heard some information from the assistant commissioner and the council from DMV that there are actually over 100,000 West Virginians right now with suspended driver's license just because of unpaid citations. I think that is a unbelievable number, and this is a crisis for sure with all the judicial reform we've been doing that we have to address. I think this work permit program can go, a decent way to doing that, but in the future, if not this session, I think we definitely need to look at what other states have done, like Mississippi, California, other states of completely taking away people's driver's license for not being able to afford to pay a ticket. So there are a number of pieces of legislation pending. I have a bill. I think a few other members, maybe the lady from the 51st and some other members have some bipartisan legislation that would eliminate this. The reason we heard from DMV, and I have utmost respect for the individuals from DMV and the governor's office, those proposed the bill, but the reason we went this direction rather than eliminating suspensions was that we didn't want to cause any conflict with the counties or the cities, that they would lose revenue because of this. But honestly, I'm not worried about the counties and cities losing revenue from unpaid citations that are preventing citizens of West Virginia from getting to work. I think if we allow them to keep their driver's license and go to work, they're going to eventually pay these citations and fees without racking up late fees. So, for those reasons, I just ask the members of this House to consider, possible further legislation. I think the work permit bill could actually be still a good idea for those other people that have suspended driver's license other than unpaid citations going forward, if both pieces of legislation work. If we're not able to run the other legislation this year, then I hope we can look at that in future legislative sessions. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lady from the 50th, Doug Longstreth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to ask to have the remarks from the gentleman from the 50th and also the gentleman from the 1st be placed in the appendix of the journal.
Are there objections? Chair hears no objections. The gentleman from the 42nd, Doug Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to remind everyone that right here in front of us is the basketball that's autographed by Bob Huggins that Delegate Bates has donated for a silent auction, and that will close tomorrow, and it's available to anyone inside this chamber or outside this chamber. If you'd like to place a auction bid on that, please do that by tomorrow. The current bid right now is $500, and all proceeds will go to the Norma Mae Huggins Endowment Cancer Fund at WVU. Thank you.
The gentleman in the 50th, Doug Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I promise I'll try to be brief. I want to share a story with my colleagues. Some of you may have heard this a few years ago when we were able to move to discharge a bill relating with medical cannabis in the state. There's a young lady in my neighborhood that I was around since she was born. Her and my daughter went all through grade school and all through high school together. She's a cancer survivor. She had rectal cancer at a very young age. And Lisa was going through treatment after treatment after treatment, much chemo, much radiation. She was on 26 different drugs when someone suggested to her cannabis. Of course, cannabis was illegal in the state of West Virginia. But her parents, watching her suffer, watching their little girl be nauseous every day, not be able to eat, not be able to sleep. When she did eat or drink something, she couldn't hold it down. You do what you got to do for your children. So, somehow, they acquired cannabis for her, illegally. The cannabis worked so well, she went from 26 different drugs down to 2. Now, that little girl was in my office yesterday with Delegates Longstreth and Angelucci, and we talked about that story, and we cried together about that story. She's doing really well now. But she got through those very, very difficult times with cannabis. And we're not putting West Virginians first. When we can't get a bill that passed 3 years ago up and running, and when we try to perfect that bill on the floor, we get shut down every time. It's not about gamesmanship. It's about helping people. We all come down here to try to help people. I got a voicemail on my phone right now that I let Delegate Pushkin listen to 2 days ago. Come listen to it. Come listen to this veteran who is under hospice care and is dying, and he's buying illegal weed so he don't have to suffer every day. Come listen to that. Then I want to see your vote the next time we try to move some cannabis. Lisa's dad, his name's Fred. He was a director of the Marion County Rescue Squad. He's given so much back to the community in his life. Fred and I grew up together in the same coal camp. We played together. We ran the streets together. We worked in the mine together for 20 years. And I'll bet you Fred never had a parking ticket in his life. I bet you Fred never had a speeding ticket in his life. And he was forced to go out on the street and buy illegal weed so his daughter didn't have to suffer. There's something wrong with that picture, ladies and gentlemen. There's something extremely wrong with that. And there's not a one of us, I don't believe, in this chamber would ever allow our children to suffer. Fred did the right thing. Fred and Mary did the right thing. They brought relief to Lisa. She got through that. She's down here with the American Cancer Society yesterday giving back because she fought so hard to get where she's at today, and she wants to spend her life helping others. And she has a real story to tell. This is real life people with real life experiences. I just don't get it. I'm sorry. I know a lot of you guys disagree with me on a lot of things, but I think we all should come together to help Lisa, to help that veteran who left that voicemail on my phone, to help the many people who are suffering today. And we could give relief by processing and moving and getting medical cannabis up and running in this state. That should be something that should be a top priority for every one of us. That's one thing I guess I will never understand, when we can come together in a bipartisan way, when we can help our veterans that's suffering from PTSD, and we can help the Lisa Johnsons of the world. I'll just never figure out why we don't. I'll just never figure out why we don't. We're at day 30. We've got time to do this. I would rather it be done with the blessings of the current leadership. Let's pull ourselves together. Let's get this done. We don't want to keep making these discharge motions. But we don't have any other vehicle to try to bring such an important issue to the forefront and put West Virginians first. Thank you all for listening.
The gentleman is 6, Doug Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wonder if it would be appropriate for me to pray for this situation in southern West Virginia that my friend from McDowell County was talking about just a few minutes ago. Would that be appropriate, sir?
Does the chair hear objection to the gentleman's request? No
I'd
objection. No
ask
objections
that
heard.
the House rise.
Guests in the galleries will please also rise. Gentleman may proceed.
Let's pray. Father, we come to you today with a heavy, heavy heart. We know how destructive our weather can be. We know what happens when we get this type of rain. And Father, we pray that you would be with first responders that are having to go there, that are having to respond to these emergencies. Lord, we pray for the families. We pray, Lord, for property. We know, God, that you are a God who can intervene. And Lord, today, as a body, we can be in unity and ask you to keep these folks safe. In Jesus' name. And everybody said,
Amen. If all members and guests would be seated, the chair recognizes the lady from the 51st, Dr. Fleischauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have been to Pennsylvania recently several times to see family members and noticed how many ads I was seeing for dispensaries. So I looked up when they started their law. It was in 2016, and the first dispensary opened in January of 2018. I hope we can do better in West Virginia or similarly to Pennsylvania. Let's try to work together and move on this, and we have 30 days left. We should be able to manage that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The lady from the 50th, Dr. Longstreth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to ask again unanimous consent that the gentleman from the 50th remarks be placed in the appendix of the journal.
Does the chair hear objection? Chair does not hear objection. Gentleman of the 7th, Dr. Barnhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just ask unanimous consent that the remarks from my friend from the 6th also be printed in the appendix of the journal. Thank you.
Are there objections? Chair hears no objections. The gentleman of the 50th, Dr. Angelucci.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before my unanimous consent, I do want to tell the body, my friend and colleague from the 50th, one of the strongest of men that I've ever known, and yesterday when he was speaking with Lisa was the first time I've ever seen this man cry. And when I talked to this young lady, I asked her, I said, I'm not familiar with cannabis. Did you have any side effects? She said, yes. I finally could eat. I could eat going through chemo and radiation. But with that said, Mr. Speaker, I ask for unanimous consent that the remarks from the gentleman from the 30th, Delegate Bates, be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Are there objections? Chair hears no objections. The gentleman of the 27th, Dr. Porterfield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to thank this body for passing Senate Bill 94. As everyone here knows, that I am visually impaired and I'm an American with a disability. We, with bipartisan support, passed Senate Bill 94 out of this House once it came over from the Senate, and I had the privilege yesterday of being with Governor Jim Justice to see this bill signed into law. What that bill did was allow people such as myself that do not have eyesight with a severe disability to be able to exercise their constitutional right to vote in privacy. I spoke about this whenever the bill came across and talked about it on the floor, but I just once again want to thank both the Senate Judiciary and House Judiciary for taking this up, Minority Council, the legal groups from D.C. With Urban Development to Help Disabilities, American Council for the Blind, National Federation for the Blind, for working so hard to make this a reality, to help some of the most vulnerable people in our society, those with disabilities that are discriminated against so often, to give them their constitutional right. A special thanks goes out to Mac Warner
and his legal counsel led by Deke Kersey that just made this a priority. And I want to thank my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for making this a reality. Governor Justice gave me a pen being at that signing yesterday, and after a very long day, I stopped by my parents' home last night and dropped that pen off to my dad and mom, who got a call on December 10th, 2006, that their son was blind and they had to, their whole life was changed. To let them know that my friends and fellow colleagues here and our governor, through the leadership of Mac Warner and his office, made it possible for my constitutional rights and those like me to be able to vote in privacy. And I am just very grateful to that. I'm humbled. I'm grateful for the bipartisan support on this. I thank everyone for their help in making this a reality, and that ableism has been removed and given people with disabilities, and especially those that are visually impaired, the ability to vote their conscience and exercise their constitutional right in privacy as they should be able to. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman to 17th, I got Lovejoy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would simply ask unanimous consent that the remarks by my friend from the 1st during remarks by members on Veterans Visibility Day be printed and placed in the appendix to the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears no objection. Are there other remarks? If not, introduction of guests. The gentleman to 27th, I got Schott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The delegates representing Mercer County are pleased to have today our Executive Director of the Princeton Rescue Squad, Mr. Stacy Hicks. He's in the North Gallery. Please make him welcome.
The gentleman to 22nd, Dr. Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to introduce our Doctor of the Day from Charleston, West Virginia. It's Mitch Jacks, if the House would make him feel welcome.
Further introductions? Miscellaneous business? If none, lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After conferring with the Minority Leader and yourself, I'm going to move that, subject to announcements, the House adjourn until 10:30 on Friday. With the community flooding and the snow up north, we wanted to push that back a little bit. So 10:30 Friday.
The question before the House is that the House stand adjourned until 10:30 a.m. tomorrow. Are there announcements? The lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Rules Committee will meet at 10:15 tomorrow. Or 10:30, excuse me, 10:30. Oh, wait a minute. 10:15 is correct. 10:15 behind the chamber. Thank you.
The gentleman to 66, Doug Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, just a reminder for members, bill introduction deadline is this Tuesday. You will need to have all bill drafting requests into bill drafting by the close of business today, unless it is pre-approved. If it is pre-approved, it will need to be in by close of business tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman to 10th, I got Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Finance will meet Friday morning at 9 a.m. in the House Finance Committee room. The agenda will be posted.
The gentleman to 27th, Dr. Schott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on the Judiciary will resume its consideration of the posted agenda today at 5 p.m. In view of the early convening of the session tomorrow, the Committee on the Judiciary tomorrow will meet at 8:30. The only item on our agenda will be House Bill 4543, and we'll have a number of individuals there to offer to provide testimony and answer technical questions. And finally, Mr. Speaker, on Monday, February 10th, at 8:30 here in the morning here in the House chamber, there will be a public hearing on House Bill 4615. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman to 13th, Dr. Higginbotham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Education will meet today at 5 p.m. in the Education Committee room. Additionally, Democratic members will caucus with the chairman and myself at 4, and Republicans will caucus with us in the chairman's office at 4:30. We will also be meeting again tomorrow at 9 a.m.
The gentleman to 45th, Doug Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Government Organization will meet tomorrow, Friday the 7th at 8:30 a.m. in the Government Organization Room, 215 in the East Wing. The agenda will be posted.
Lady in the 32nd, Doug Kessinger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on the Prevention and Treatment of Substance Abuse will meet today at 1 p.m. in the Government Organization Committee Room.
The gentleman in the 58th, Doug Coles.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Committee on Political Subdivisions will meet today at 1 o'clock in the House Judiciary Committee Room. The agenda is posted.
The gentleman in the 32nd, Doug Fast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You should have on your desk a Congressional Prayer Caucus document, and if anyone is interested in joining in on that, we are going to meet 10:30 in the morning at the Lewis McManus Room. That's tomorrow morning. There will be a meeting at 10:30 tomorrow, which would include some of the senators. I understand there is a conflict with session. The senators can still meet there. And regardless, if you would be interested in receiving information and being a part of the Congressional Prayer Caucus, please fill that out and return it to myself. Thank you.
The gentleman in the 10th, Doug Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Energy will meet today at 3 o'clock. That meeting will be in the Judiciary Committee Room. The agenda is posted.
The gentleman in the 28th, Doug Pack.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Health and Human Resources will meet today at 3 p.m. in the East Wing Conference Room. The agenda has been posted. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, Republican members of Health and Human Resources will caucus with the chairman in his office at 2:45 p.m. Finally, Mr. Speaker, Republican members of this House will not caucus today. Thank you.
The lady in the 32nd, Doug Staggers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Democratic members of the Health Committee will meet in 2:30, and they will meet at 2:45. Thank you.
The gentleman in the 50th, Doug Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Two announcements. Democrats will have a very brief caucus in 252. The Lou McManus Room will right immediately upon adjournment. It will be very brief. Democrats in 252. And also to the delegations from Mon and Marion County, the Milan kids will be on the House floor at 1:30 if you'd like to join in for a photo. You're welcome to.
Are there other announcements? If not, then the question before the House is the motion that the House stand adjourned until 10:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. Those in favor will say aye. Any opposed will say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The House is adjourned until 10:30 tomorrow.